Good morning, everyone, and room C1, West St. Paul, Mr. B here. Going on to the next topic for poetry. So, we looked at personification last week, and we looked at how personification is a comparing or is describing a non living or inanimate thing using human characteristics. So, you could say the forest swallowed the hikers, or the patient wind waited, anything like that. Today we're going to go into our next two topics, and they're very similar. That's why they are together. So, similes and metaphors. Now, we've actually talked about similes a bit before, and we're going to delve into them a little bit more. So, use this video as a way to help you with the work that will be coming. There will be some worksheets, some poetry analysis is on the way, and so follow along today. It's not a long one, but you're welcome to take some notes and examples, so you don't have to go back to the video, but you could always if you want to. So a simile is a comparison between two unlike things that have something in common. So a simile always uses the words like or as. This is the big difference between similes and other types of figurative language. It's that they use the words like or as to compare somewhat unlike things, but they do have something in common. So examples could be, it's been a hard day's night and I've been working like a dog. The Beatles is a great example. My heart is like an open highway. Now, let's look at that one for a second. Heart and highway, obviously two very different things, but they have something in common. The idea that they're open. Now, again, figurative language, because hearts aren't exactly open, but he's using it figuratively to mean that his heart is willing to take in someone, willing to love someone, like an open highway is an open place to drive. Like two peas in a pod, again, using the words like to compare peas in a pod. Like Christmas in summer. Now, this is one that comes up every now and then, using the words Christmas and summer. Obviously, very different things, but the one thing they share in common is that they're both really fun times of the year. Snow was like a blanket. So again, snow and blanket, two different things, but they do cover things. So that's why they're being used to compare with the word like, a simile. My love is like a red, red rose. Now again, love and rose, not exactly the same thing, but they share the idea of I guess hearts with red. That's kind of a stretch there, but it can still work. Deer ran like the wind. Again, using the word like to compare deer and running. Of course, they're not the same thing, but they do move quickly, so we say run like the wind. So these are all examples of similes. As hungry as a bear. These are examples using the word as instead of like. So again, bears and hungry, not exactly the same thing, but bears do eat a lot. As nutty as a fruitcake, as quick as lightning, slippery as an eel, solid as a rock, stubborn as a mule, and as sturdy as an oak. So these are all comparisons using the words like or as to compare two unlike things, but that share something in common. Now, a metaphor is the exact same thing, but we don't use the words like or as. So if you're doing a comparison and the words like or as appear, it's a simile. If it's a comparison without the words like or as, it's a metaphor. So Patty was a raging tiger when she lost her lunch money. That's a metaphor, but it doesn't. It's comparing Patty, the person, to a raging tiger, but it doesn't use the words like or as. During the night, the forest was a dark, frightening battlefield. Okay, so again, comparing a forest to a battlefield, two unlike things, but not using the words like and as. A heart of stone, he has the heart of a lion. You are the sun in my sky. You are the light in my life. She is my east, my west, my compass. These are all love comparisons, at least the last three were. You are the sun in my sky, sun and sky. Again, it's the idea that you're the brightness in the person's sky or his life or her life. You are the light in my life, so you are the part that gives it brightness, gives it joy. Again, all comparisons, all of them not using the words like or as. More examples. Life is a mere dream, a fleeting shadow on a cloudy day. Love is a lemon, either bitter or sweet, drowning in the sea, jumping for joy, rolling in dough, apple of my eye. It is raining cats and dogs. The love is a fragile flower opening to the warmth of spring. There's so many examples of similes and metaphors in everything from music lyrics to poetry to famous sayings. We see these things all the time. Now, we'll do a few examples here, and you could tell me if you think that these are similes or metaphors. Stanley Yelnats was as nervous as a cat with a long tail in a room full of rocking chairs as he rode the bus to Camp Green Lake. So, let's look this sentence over. We do see a comparison in the first part. Stanley was as nervous as a cat. Now, the fact that the word as is used there shows that this is a simile right away. Zero was a mole as he dug his 5-foot deep hole. Zero was a mole as he dug his 5-foot deep hole. Now, we need to look at what's being compared here. Zero was a mole as he dug his 5-foot deep hole. What do you guys think? Simile or metaphor? Now, again, it is a metaphor, but let's go back and look because it appears to see the word as there. Zero was a mole. Okay, now there's the comparison. The part that as he dug his 5-foot hole isn't actually the comparison. The character, because it's capitalized, Zero, is being compared to a mole, but there is no like or as. It didn't say Zero was like a mole or Zero was as crafty as a mole. It just says Zero was a mole. So this is a metaphor. Watch where the word as is placed. Sometimes they show up, but they're not actually part of the comparison. X-Ray was misnamed, for he was really as blind as a bat. Okay, now let's look at this one. X-Ray was misnamed, for he was really as blind as a bat. Now this one, the word as actually goes in between the comparisons, so this one is a simile, if you guessed it. Squid was a wounded animal on the inside, even though he taunted Stanley about his receiving letters from and writing to his mother. Squid was a wounded animal on the inside, even though he taunted Stanley about receiving letters from and writing to his mother. Now, if you guessed metaphor, you're right. There is no like or as in any of these. Magnet's fingers were sticky jam as he stole Mr. Sin's sunflower seeds. Magnet's fingers were sticky jam as he stole Mr. Sir's sunflower seeds. Now, if you guessed metaphor, you'd be right. Look at this one. His fingers were sticky jam. There's the comparison. The as is not part of it. Caveman smelled like a skunk after days of not bathing. Caveman smelled like a skunk after days of not bathing. If you guessed simile, you're right, because like is right in between smelled like a skunk. Zigzag had a heart of stone when he would not apologize to Stanley after hitting him in the head with a shovel. Zigzag had a heart of stone when he... Now, if you remember back to the examples we just did, heart of stone is a metaphor. No like or as used there. The warden's nails were deadly weapons after she painted them with rattlesnake's venom. The warden's nails were deadly weapons after she painted them with rattlesnake's venom. Clearly, there is no like or as in here. This is a metaphor. Kate Barlow was as gentle as a lamb, while Kissin' Kate was as tough as nails. Gentle as a lamb, tough as nails. These are easy similes. Now, we could do a bit of practice here. So if you do have some paper, you could do this there. And there's going to be some work on similes to go eventually with this. Number your paper 1 to 10. For each of the following, determine if the sentence contains a simile or a metaphor. So what I'd like you to do, have your paper out. You're going to be taking a picture of this for some marks. Number it 1 to 10 just down the side. And all you need to write is whether each one of these statements that comes up is a simile or a metaphor. Number 1, Sam's medicinal remedies made from onions were pure gold to the people of Green Lake. Sam's medicinal remedies made from onions were pure gold to the people of Green Lake. So just all you need to write is simile or metaphor. And if you need the spelling, it's right on the PowerPoint there. Charles Walker thought he was a tycoon since his family was the richest in Green Lake. Charles Walker thought he was a tycoon since his family was the richest in Green Lake. Remember, simile or metaphor. Charles Walker thought he was a tycoon since his family was the richest in Green Lake. Ilya Yelnats' luck was poisoned meat that he passed down for generations to his family. Ilya Yelnats' luck was poisoned meat that he passed down for generations to his family. Madame Zeroni's rage was a curse after Ilya broke his promise to carry her to the top of a mountain. Madame Zeroni's rage was a curse after Ilya broke his promise. If I'm going too fast, feel free to pause the video. Stanley Yelnats, I was as happy as a rat with a gold tooth when he reached the summit of the top of the thumb-shaped mountain. Stanley, I was as happy as a rat with a gold tooth when he reached the summit of the top of the thumb-shaped mountain. Simile or metaphor? Mr. Sir was meaner than Oscar the Grouch when he had to replace smoking with eating sunflower seeds. Mr. Sir was meaner than Oscar the Grouch when he had to replace smoking with eating sunflower seeds. Mr. Pendanski's mean streak was as sure as death and taxes. Mr. Pendanski's mean streak was as sure as death and taxes. Remember, simile or metaphor? Clyde Livingston's foot odor was as deadly as a revolver. Clyde Livingston's foot odor was as deadly as a revolver. Remember, simile or metaphor? And again, if I'm going too fast, just pause the video. Derek Dunn was as mean as a bull approaching a matador. Derek Dunn was as mean as a bull approaching a matador. And the last one, Mrs. Yelnats was as worried as a surrounded bank robber. Mrs. Yelnats was as worried as a surrounded bank robber. Go back and make sure you have all of them done. We definitely don't want you to miss any here. Now, if you have everything done there, you are good to go. Otherwise, there will be some worksheets coming in the next few weeks with simile and metaphor on there. Make sure you can always go, sorry, I shouldn't say make sure. You can always go back to this video if you need some reminders. And please make sure you get all the work done. It was nice seeing you guys again. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.